everyone, it's Neve here and welcome to my art journaling channel. Today we've got another magazine collage page, and this is a quick page just using altered images or altering images. So again, I'm starting in my large Dina Wakley journal, and this is another page that has been gel printed into my journal, and I really liked the background. If you haven't come across this technique before with the gel plate, it's basically you just ink up your gel plate with some paint. In this case I used black. Then I just took the inside roll of a washi tape that I'd actually finished and just moved it across the page in the wet paint, and it actually ends up giving that really cool 3D effect. So for those of you who've got a gel plate out there, have a go at that because it's lots and lots of fun. But like a previous page I've done, I really liked the gel print, but I didn't like the space around it and I couldn't work out how to use it. So I decided that I wanted to create a border around it, which is a technique that Tisha Moore and Dye Reevely do a lot with their magazine collages. And I don't tend to put borders on a lot of my artwork because I tend to work up to the edges. But for some reason, when I do magazine images, usually because magazine images don't fit the full page, so they need some sort of border to work around them, it just works perfectly. So when I saw this, I suddenly had the idea. It's like, oh yeah, okay, that's a good way to frame that gel print but not lose what you've got. So I've just covered the outside edges with double-sided sticky tape, and this is my box of strips of collage bits and pieces that I have specifically for doing this technique, and it's full of everything. It's got old printables, it's got gel prints, it's got pieces of vintage text, it's got the free postcards you pick up, the advertising postcards, it's got old photos, anything I can think of. One thing that's been going in there a lot recently is any small pieces of the Dina Wakley collage collective. If they're bits that I won't use in anything else, I cut them into strips and chuck them in that box as well. The other thing I like to do, just to sort of tie everything together, is to use some washi tape as well, because again, I've got a lot of washi tape and I don't use it very often. So this is a great technique for using up my washi. I tend to like to tear it into small little strips just so you get little splashes of colour, and I like to use blacks or metallics or glitter washies in this when I'm doing things like this. If you didn't have your collage strips or it seemed too much of a bother, you could do this and just overlap different strips of washi tapes and come up with a really cool border as well. So framing your artwork is always a fun thing to do. So now I'm going in with my paint pens and just adding some extra marks. And again, this is you adding your own little creative touch to your page. I just add random lines here and there. If something's looking a little bland, like that little bit down the bottom, you know, it's all white, I add a little bit of blue on just to balance it up. And usually when I'm doing things like this, I tend to add the color 3 places. So, you know, that blue went in 3 different places, the pink went in 3 different places. The final thing I'm doing, again, just to make it really definite that this is a border, this sort of frames everything, is to go around with a paint pen just to highlight that border. I also had some little bits that weren't sticking down, so I've just glued them down. Now, in most cases, I'd actually just use a black pen to do that, but in this case, because it had so much black on it, I actually wanted to use a contrast color, so I used my yellow because the image that I was going to use had some yellow in it as well. So I've just found a cool image from a magazine, and she's sort of this funky chick sitting there with a life boy around her, because, you know, that's what you do when you're in a fashion magazine. And I decided to actually have her sitting slightly off the page, so she's not in the center of my page. She's actually nearly touching the border, and she's definitely overlapping that border that I made. And again, that's a fun technique to do because it sort of incorporates the outside and brings it into the inside again. So now I'm just going around with my paint pen and altering my image. So I love to use paint pens on top of my magazine images because it gives me something to work with. I've got a model I can work on, but I can sort of add my own little spin to it. So I didn't necessarily want to having a pink boy in the background, but I want to make it really graphic. So I've got my black pen, and then I'll go in with a hot pink colour in a minute. It is important. Someone asked me in comments recently whether my paint pen or any paint I had came off my magazine images, and I haven't had that happen, but I am usually pretty good at, before I change colours, actually heat setting it so it's permanent. If you use paint markers, or if you use alcohol markers, I suppose too, they're permanent on the page once they're dry. Alcohol markers I don't tend to use very often, and to be honest, they should be fine, they should go over it fine, but you may find on some paper types they bleed. So I would do a test go on something before you actually try it on your final image that you want to do. But just really simple things, like you don't have to do much to these images, but you can go in and sort of change up the colours. You know, while I really like that yellow on the page, I could have gone in and made that purple or green or any other colour I wanted. So you can use what you've got to really sort of ramp up the colours somewhat. So I decided I want to add some blue to this page, so she's going to end up with some blue stripes on her jumper. And with the yellow, while I quite liked it, I decided I wanted to put a little bit more detail in, so I went in with a black marker over the top. For any of you who are, you know, Zentanglers or like doodling over the tops of things, these are great images for you to sort of get your teeth into and just really have a go at, you know, making them your own. And it, you know, you can't ruin them really. You can just have fun. On a lot of my magazine images, I tend to add extra stuff into them. For example, change their heads, change their eyes, add different lips and so on. But in some cases, I didn't have much time to do this. I was just having a little bit of fun. I just left her as is, just with my drawings over the top and adding the extra colouring over the top. So you can get really complicated and really add lots and lots to this, or you can make it as simple as possible. At this stage, I was sort of looking at her legs too, thinking it'd be really cool if she sort of had funky striped legs as well. But I thought, oh no, just leave it. You probably got too much here. So with a lot of my magazine collages like this, I tend to do them when I'm feeling a little bit snarky, a little bit not against the world, but something's usually bothered me and I just need to vent. And this is one of these pages. So the quote down the bottom was something about asking your opinions, or I can't remember, we'll see in the close-up. But the quote that I thought to go with it was, "At times I'm grateful that thoughts don't appear in bubbles over our heads." And for me at the moment, that's really, really true, because I don't think, there's an awful lot of stuff going through my head at times that probably aren't appropriate for the company that I'm in. And whether I would still be working at times would be another one. So I'm just going in with a white paint pen and just thickening up my lines. I tend to write out, when I'm doing quotes like this, write it out just in block letters so it fits in, and then I go back afterwards and thicken up the lines and make it look a little bit more interesting and stand out from the page a little bit more as well. So once I kind of have got my spacing down, I can then go, I know how much space I've got to play around with. So it's a really great way sort of to help you fit in your quotes. This quote isn't, in its entirety, it's been paraphrased, because again, the whole thing wouldn't fit on this page. So you can do that. You can paraphrase things so that they fit on. And yeah, because I had so much black in the background, I'm using the white obviously as a bit of contrast, so it will fit in. You can see down the bottom here as well, where it's got heads that I've actually written over the magazine image, and that's okay. I don't really mind, because the quote's probably the more important thing rather than the image. With that little space in the middle, so all opinions will be ignored in the order in which they're received. So that sort of summed up my last few days as well. So with the little space, I just added in the arrow to point to it, just to sort of bring it all together. So it's a very layered page, I suppose, with lots going on, but they're lots of fun to do, and they're a great way to get something really quirky and unique on your page without having to do much work. This page took me about 30, 40 minutes to do all up. So they're not long pages to do. You can do them quite quickly. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye for now.